Hi guys, it's Celine and it's Friday, so 3 days and a bit, I suppose, after my second Moderna vaccine, I'm actually more or less fine again, which is like normal. So there may be all sorts of weirdness in my life, but in some respects, I'm actually normal, which is weird for a change. Um, it's nice to be able to say, okay, so this is in the past for me now. Um, I will have to negotiate somehow if there is going to be a third vaccine, which they're talking about, of course, in the autumn or any of it. What they're going to do, I don't even know at this point. I don't think anybody knows really what the plan is. Um, I may have to negotiate, what to do, whether to take it or to just, you know, I don't know, really. There's been a bit of an upheaval because, of course, there have been more infections, what with restrictions being um, taken away and a lot of unvaccinated people, getting into contact with each other again. There's been more infections and more, virus news and things. You could just have sat and waited for that to happen, I think. So, yeah. I don't at this point think that it will interfere with my holiday plans, which is like my huge deal because I have an appointment with the cypress trees in the south of France and they are calling to me. So I don't think it's also a new moon. Like I said in my thing that I uploaded just now, I uploaded a little video, and that's why I'm really here. I wanted to give this is like a part two to that spread tarot spread business that I uploaded just 10 minutes ago or so. I still have to type in the spread questions, which I will do because people like that. So it's been quite therapeutic. Also, as always with these types of tarot spreads, I find that I learn a lot and it's uncomfortable. It's always about things that are really, that you've always been fighting against or fighting. I have been fighting to prevent myself and other people from having to acknowledge any type of vulnerability ever, you know, because that was just basically not an option. So I was really grinding to a halt in this context of this second vaccine here. How it went for me was really simple actually, is that I sort of, because I had had a first jab, of course, in May somewhere, I had my second jab Monday this week, so 5 days ago, and I was terrified beforehand. And that is already something that doesn't happen to me all that much. These days I don't really freak out all that much anymore. I don't really have any health problems that are worthy of note, that are worthy for me to go to see doctors or any of it. So I suppose I'm really lucky, and I've always fought for my physical maintenance, my independence, my physical sovereignty. Physical sovereignty is sovereignty is a huge deal for me. It's like I saw my mother deteriorate year in, year out when I was a kid. I have seen her have pain and suffer and wrestle with the lack of sovereignty, the lack of people listening. There was nobody listening to her, there was nobody who paid attention to her really. As a consequence, she felt angry and ignored, and she never trusted anybody. That's the atmosphere I grew up in. And a lot of my anxiety, which is what it was Monday, there are two aspects to this whole anxiety, I think. So I want to talk about that. I just feel it's really useful to talk about this kind of stuff, and other people do it as well. So here goes. I suppose there's an emotional aspect to me that has to do with the way I felt, which I couldn't get into that until yesterday, and it's actually those cards in that spread that sort of opened this whole theme up for me again, where it is about how I felt when I was 2, 3, 4 years old. And already at that time and afterwards, for a very long time, as long as my mother was alive, basically, I felt that I was supposed to look after her instead of her, really. She did what she could for me, and she advised me whenever she could, but she never really made me feel that safe. So I grew up with a couple of handicaps as a consequence, as a result. I have anxiety issues. I have issues with feeling very defensive and proud towards people who are trying to help me. I absolutely hate it when people try to help me. The more I need it, the less I am going to be willing to accept any help. You know, survivor stuff. It's survivor attitudes. And my mother had lots of reasons why she was the way she was, why she acted the way she did. Both my parents, all my grandparents had plenty of reasons to be the way they were, and they really couldn't help it. None of them, no one of them could help the way they were. But still, this results in a sort of a very maladjusted kind of a situation or life pattern or behavior pattern for me as I, turn 55 this year. I am more and more coming to terms with this situation and learning also each time that the more I accept how I am and where it all comes from, the easier it is for me to let go of some of that stuff, to let go of some of the barriers I put up, to figure myself out again, anew, if you like. And I believe that that's a really hopeful, a really, gorgeous, really conclusion to spread into the internet at this point. Why not? To just say that I believe our own self-healing capabilities are way bigger, way, way, way bigger than we will ever believe they are. We don't know our self-healing capabilities. We have no clue. We only ever believe or think as in the lines as we are taught by society, by the past, basically, which is outdated and behind us, The past is old school. Yesterday is old school. Yesterday can give us information, but it shouldn't really tell us what to do today, I always feel. So, along those lines, I feel that we have no idea really as to how much self-regeneration is possible inside of us. Miraculous healing of cells and rebuilding. This body can do so much more than we believe, than we give it credit for, really. So there's a really strong overlap or gray area between the emotional side of this whole thing for me and the physical side, which was the other of my two bits here that I want to share with you. Because I had actual physical anxiety Monday going into my vaccine because my body knew what was coming. I was really stressed out and really nervous, way more compared to the first time where I went like, okay, go ahead, just stick it in and who cares, it's nothing, it's not a big deal, it's not like a huge event. But this time, my body very obviously knew what it was that was coming. And it was, like I said before, trying to claw itself out of the car window and, race off down to to the other side of the horizon. Get the hell out of there. Anything but this. And I had no choice. I felt I was committed to my holiday, to my husband, to his clients, to the world, to you guys, to just man up, put the big girl panties on and stick it out, just go ahead, just like everybody else. Sometimes you just have to be brave about these things. I am a person, I noticed this, of course, on, what was it? Tuesday I was really rather sick. Wednesday I was getting slightly better. And I started noticing some vibrational issues that have to do with this whole thing and what happens to your Shakti energy and things like that, which is actually enough material for a separate video. I will see how far I get at this point. I suppose it's all part of the same story, so I might just well give it all to you at this point, like so. But because I've been really engaged and you can say fanatical and obsessed about my whole energy work life that I have, I am very sensitive to all those things, also vibrationally. And in terms of vibration, my body was picking up perfectly what it was that was coming and didn't want to have to deal with it. And I have had to deal with it anyway, just like all of, lots of people. And so there you go. It's just, you can't always listen to your gut is one part of the conclusion right there. And I suppose one conclusion I came to last night when talking to my husband about this whole thing was that one thing that makes it really hard to deal with for the body, this vaccine, is that there is sort of a logical progression viewed from the gut, from the body inside, okay, when you're actually falling ill. There's like a natural progression of sorts, certainly with something which is like a flu, like an infection. Your defenses are, not so good. Here comes this virus, boom, on and on. It is like a logical progression from A to B to C to D, where you hope that by the time you get to E or thereabouts, you're recuperating again. And in the case of the vaccine, that wasn't the case. There is no logic for the body. You see what I mean? The body feels like, what are you doing to me? You're sticking something into me that I then have to figure out how to deal with, which is, I don't know, it's been it's been really difficult. So I think I've said enough about those things. I have noticed in terms of Tumo energy, so my whole Shakti Tumo process, that I tend to practice a lot of, has been more or less completely incapacitated. And I have noticed mainly one thing, and that is that the Dantian levels, which sit inside the body, that are not like chakras, but transformational centers for the Shakti Kundalini energy going upwards, like so. The Dantians get sort of shut down, paralyzed is the word I was looking for, by the COVID symptoms, by some type of a strategy. What it does is that normally when you're, especially the lower Dantian, if you just manage to get like this much, like an egg shell helping full of Shakti energy to your first Dantian, that will always make a difference in how you feel. It's what I've been doing this morning and yesterday. Just small helpings just to get my lower Dantian back in order again, back in business. It looks like the Dantian itself actually needs feeding Shakti. It needs to be supplied with Shakti, and then it can work with some of that energy and supply the next level Shakti, so which by then I call Tumo energy, depending on the strength of the Dantian. It will actually turn into Tumo energy, which is really noticeable, or it will just percolate softly upward into your body, and all that will make you feel a lot better. It will make you feel stronger. It sort of sorts out every kind of energy need of the organs and the metabolism and all the rest of it in here, coming from the lower dantian upwards, is what I've noticed. And both the vaccine and the any actual disease, and I'm addressing my good friend Jennifer Pearson, who is a subscriber of mine. Hi, Jen. In particular, here, I'm quite confident that for you, Jennifer, the Lyme disease that you have struggled with for so long actually does the same thing. It sort of paralyzes your lower dantian, and it would be Herculean, an effort getting the Shakti. So that is probably the reason, I would say, from here, from where I am, a couple of 1,000 miles away from your location, and I've never met you in person. Yeah, that's probably, Jennifer has shared on her own channel a couple of videos where she talks about her health situation, and so I'm fairly okay with talking about her here also. And I think that in that kind of a situation with Lyme disease, what any parasite, any type of parasite will do, is create this imbalance, paralysis, inadequacy inside this first dantian between the hip joints. And our physical health, normal health actually, that we aspire to and that we'll want to have, is nothing more than a properly functioning lower dantian by itself. As long as the lower dantian is keeping up, and I think that this is a criterion that nobody is going to use, of course, maybe in 10 years' time, when I have 1 million subscribers, if you could believe that. This kind of knowledge will be listened to and or tried to make sense of. Because this is a part of, it's Chinese medicine. The dantians are really a traditional part of Chinese medicine, but there is not really a physical counterpart for the vibrational nature of the dantian. And you have to study Kundalini and Shakti energy and Tumo with the dantians together, the three of them, the Kundalini energy and the dantians come together in the Tumo practice. That's what it is, really. And you just learn to get used to a really active set of dantians like that, and it becomes very much part of your life and something you rely on. So for me, it was really noticeable that over the past couple of days, the whole thing was just completely shut down. And if number 1 is shut down, 2 and 3 are also, very much depleted in energy. And if there's a parasite or anything that is living at your expense, it is living at the expense of your Shakti as it is made available to you through the dantians. If I talk about it like that, it actually really makes sense that is what a parasite who is looking to occupy a certain location, they would hijack the energy supply, right? It's war. Cut off the bridges, make sure they're starving in there, make sure they can't have supplies. It's like that. It's just like that. So that's my vibrational perspective on that thing. I feel like I want to come back to my cards a bit more because I want to, sort of wrap this whole thing up and then move forward from here. I was really pleased with how my tarot cards always come out. I had a couple of cards that I had to sort of reinterpret a bit, and using, as you may have seen in that video, I used the astrological connotations of the cards a lot of times to for me to have sort of an objective. For me, that feels like an objective making sense of what a Two of Swords really means. And it's very flexible, and it's very that way for me. It's really rich. I get lots of layers, lots of possibilities. And so for me, using either Rider-Waite or Thoth type interpretations, mainly Rider-Waite type interpretations, are always at the back of my head anyway, because I grew up with Rachel Pollack's 78 Degrees anyway, her book. And that was the first tarot book that I got to learn about what the cards were supposed to mean. But by now, I tend to always couple them with the astrological background that I feel, or that I'm more or less confident that that's actually what happened. That Rider-Waite, as well as all the other people who are descendants or somehow carriers on of Golden Dawn material, occult knowledge gathered and promoted during the 19th and early 20th centuries. All those people really base themselves off the same basic meanings, the same basic. And I actually still very much want to do more of a series of this whole astrological foundation and just talk about these progressions through, for example, the Swords cards, through the air signs, and why do we have a moon in this sign and not on the other, because I very often don't really know. So I have not read enough of the book that's supposed to be the origin of all this, the Dogme de la Haute Magie by Eliphas Levi. I felt it really difficult to get into. I've read like 20 pages or maybe 50 pages or so of it, and it was all about other matters. So far I haven't been able to get at the nitty-gritty of this material in terms of historical context. But a lot of people are, completely satisfied with the Two of Swords interpretation, with the scenery depicted as given by Rider-Waite. And it still works, of course, because it is very cleverly based on the intricacies of what the astro actually at the background really gives. I still feel the Rider-Waite interpretations in terms of the, sceneries and enacted little portraits, that they are like a shortcut, or more like one selection of a set of possible meanings for each card. So I've always felt that the scenic depictions for the cards were limiting, which is why there are so many variations and people make their own all the time. Like my little cards that I nicked off the internet and made my own miniature version of, which I had a lot of fun doing. And it turns out that I can actually work with those cards really well, because it's tarot. It will always work for me, which is amazing and lovely and great. And I had a lot of cards that I really had to think about quite a bit, and I was surprised afterwards how much still, and certainly in my situation that I was asking my questions for, how much of it still, down to the flesh and bone of me, it has to do with perspective. With my own, having my own perspective and being aware of it. And being aware my perspective is not the same as my husband's or my mother's or my teachers or whoever else. I still have some claiming to do. If I look at that thing from a in a sort of a meditative vibration state, I can see that I have maybe realized 40% of my own awareness of my own perspective. I am still willing to sell out 60%. Okay, good to know. Thank you for those numbers. That gives me something to work with. Isn't that awful? I sell myself out. I don't really look that much. I mean, I hope I'm kind of accessible and friendly and I manage to chat my way through your time that you're giving me with some, possible sense and relatability and some kinds of, things like that. Just like everybody else, I have no real clue who I am. And I was watching on the telly when I was really miserable earlier this week. I've spent quite a lot of time watching an immense long documentary, about 2.5 hours or so, about the opera singer Maria Callas. Of course, I had to look up her chart, her birth chart, and her planets and things, and so on and so forth. And that was interesting to me to see how she was a really strong person, and she also was very lonely, I think. And I'm so much more interested in that, something I've actually just created for myself during all those years, the recent years that I've fought on developing my own perspective here, here and outside the frame of this. I can see so much more of people and what motivates people and how they go about their lives, and I'm so much more interested in interesting people, and people do all sorts of things and their choices and their needs and all that stuff. Personally, I've been really cheered up mostly by the fact that I have boletes again in this kind of a weird, freaky early summer. It's June, July. I believe last year it was the end of June, so a bit earlier than this year, but I have no way of knowing really. I actually picked up a red bolete. You won't be able to make them up. I sliced them up. There's still a bit of red color in there. Maybe that will show at some point. It's a red bolete. First time I picked one of these, it'll have to dry properly. Maybe I'll stick it just on the gas on a little plate, to dry up properly. Because then I want to be able to find out whether there's a difference in vibration to the other boletes. But it's a really earthy, grounding type of a vibe, which is why I find my boletes so comforting always to go ahead outside and look at, because I've seen like yay big ones, bigger than my head, in not all the way in 3D, but surface wise. Okay. Excellent, huge, big ass porcini mushrooms in the middle of my town, in all sorts of places. And the red boletes are fairly rare, and they're growing in the older parts of the parks around here as well. And some of them, and they have cut back. This is actually the third year that I found red boletes, so that's cool. I also found some pantherinas. They are participating. The Amanita pantherina, which is not poisonous, but I don't recommend eating it because why should you? Is actually participating in this early season, like a sort of a preview autumn in the middle of late spring, kind of early summer kind of a deal, whatever this really is. I get porcinis, I get red boletes, and I get pantherina amanitas, but no fly caps. The red amanitas really stay away completely until the end of October, when it's really getting cold. My husband made one intelligent remark, I felt. He said it just doesn't get cold enough for the muscaria, for the fly caps. So that's it. That's why they don't come out now. Really comforting to just traipse around the village a bit. I've been really slow, but every bit of exercise helps, you know. And that's the long and the short of it. Just try to keep moving. My biggest physical issue with the vaccine Tuesday and Wednesday was enormous stiffness. I have not had any headaches, so I really should count myself lucky. And my fearfulness, my anxiety issue, which I analyzed in my spread and talked about already a couple of times here, it has everything to do with my past as a really small child, where I felt that I couldn't rely on my parents. And if I have to be, my mother was always sick, also just from my early toddlerhood onward until now, basically. I have known no other situation than having to always be strong, because other people rely on me, depend on me, need me to do things and supply things and whatever else. And if I break down, I have nobody. And the I have nobody, that's my abandonment thing right there. I'm just plucking it all apart to make sure that we know what we're talking about. And it's, like I said, it's nobody's fault really, but it was really my situation, and it has gone on for decades. It has been that way all my life, and I'm trying to teach myself to be open to be helped by somebody else who actually is willing to be there for me. Even though my husband, for example, he's also really busy, and I've had moments where I was so scared during the week when I wasn't feeling good that he was actually going to claim energy off me by just putting a hand on my arm like that. I'm afraid that he will siphon away the little bit of energy that I have just gathered for myself into himself, which is like, ow, you know, that the not having a perspective that came out of the cards is a total vibrational matter for me. It has to do with my energy just draining away into the things, into people. I hope this is triggering for some people, because it means it's bad. You have to do something about that. If your energy just splurges into the cosmos like that and is lost to you, what are you supposed to do? How are you supposed to live with that? And yes, the energy is supplied again from the inside upwards, from the earth into you. There's always new energy. It isn't bad to share your energy, and also for other people to come and use your energy. We use each other's energy all the time. That's fine. Why shouldn't that be fine? I don't know, really. This is a bit of a background tale to the whole card spread thing. I felt like it would be, you know, only fair to share a bit more intel about this whole thing. I could tell you loads more about my parents and why it was that way and all the rest of it. Some of it you have heard already, and I'm just not going to go into too much detail now. Thank you for watching, you guys. And thank you for participating in these travails. I still manage to giggle. You know, I'm fine, really. It's just that it's also a matter of balance, and I suppose each of us has his and their priorities as to what it means for you to be in a state of equilibrium in your life, so that you can rely on your own things to, get your things done that you need to get done. So yeah, I will see you next week. Okay, thank you for being here, and namaste. Okay, ciao for now.